So the last month, I've spent a lot of time talking to people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the overwhelming concern is we're running out of money. What now? And we're going to talk about it. Hi everybody, my name is Dee Burks and this is Retirement Rescue. And we talk about all things concerning retirement, but not the least of those things are the worries of retirement. And I think everybody worries about running out of money in retirement. I mean, that's why you save retirement money. That's why you plan for retirement, is because that's a big worry. But the reality of retirement still catches so many people by surprise. And it doesn't catch them by surprise when they retire. The day they retire, they're doing well, they're doing good. They planned for this. It catches them 10, 15, even 20 years later. And that's happening to a lot of boomers right now. It is really happening fast too. A lot of people in late 60s, 70s, even into their 80s are now realizing inflation has done them dirty. Their money doesn't go anywhere near as far as it did even 5 years ago, let alone 10 or 15 years ago. They do not have enough money to support themselves now. Rents are escalating, and it doesn't matter even if you own. Property tax, insurance, maintenance have all escalated ridiculously. Meanwhile, inflation, even at the grocery store, is to the point you absolutely can't support yourself. And you may be thinking, because everybody thinks this, but I'll have family and I'll have my kids and guess what? They're outliving all those people. Their siblings have died. Their children have died. What now? Who's going to come to your rescue? And I really kind of hesitated to talk about this because it's just kind of such a downer. But I tell you what, the last month has been a downer. There are people who did everything right. They worked their whole life. They had retirement. A lot of these people are women. Women do tend to outlive men in retirement. They've had spouses die. Well, guess what? Anyone who's had a spouse die in retirement knows your Social Security is immediately cut. Immediately. That's a big problem. Even if you saved for retirement and have been frugal, after 10 or 15 years, the effects of inflation, all of those higher prices for everything, as well as your investments not doing all that great, they really combine to put you in a bad situation. I have talked to so many people who are just scared to death. What are they going to do? And let me give you some examples. My parents never expected to live to be 80. My dad worked hard all his life, and his parents, his dad lived into his mid-60s. His mom lived into her late 60s. He did not expect to live into his 80s. Here he is. He's 80 this year and in great shape. And they get set payments for his disability, and my mom's, he's got an Agent Orange disability thing. But anyway, and my mom's Social Security. Well, guess what? Even with the cost of living increases that have been all in the news, they haven't even touched what inflation really is just this year, let alone the last several years. And they were in a great position 5 years ago. Now they're worried. Not only that, my brother died this last year. That's one of their 3 children. My sister is looking at retirement. I've been semi-retired for a while, and now I'm working again full-time, but I'd like to retire too. So where is that going to leave them if they need help, and they will? What then? So it's a crushing concern for people of my age too, who are in their 50s with elderly parents. What happens if something happens to me? What happens if something happens to my sister? What happens to our parents then? I have talked to a woman recently who is in her late 70s, and her husband died a few years ago. And they had a family business that they passed to one of their sons. Their other son, they had 2 sons. Their other son died in his 40s from cancer. The current son that owns the business and supports his mother was just diagnosed with cancer too. And if he has to undergo treatment, there's a very real possibility he could lose his business and his own home. And he's not going to be able to support her. And I just can't tell you what it's like to sit down with someone who's almost 80 and just shakes with fear because she's got to go out and find a job. She is literally interviewing for jobs at 78. It is so frightening. It is so frightening for someone who's been retired for 15, 16, 18 years. And now they have to go think about finding a job and working, standing on their feet every day because they've got to support themselves. That is a scary but very real possibility. I've talked to another friend that their income has dropped. Their investments aren't doing that well. And they're scrambling to make money, as they do on occasion. And this is a writer friend. But still, that concern is there. Meanwhile, their debt is escalating. I cannot tell you how many older people are now carrying tremendous debt loads. And here again, that's another problem. If you're going to expect to go and spend time with a relative or maybe live with a relative, a sibling, guess what? Their situation may be worse than yours. It may not be an option. And I realize talking about these things is so scary and it's such a downer. And let me tell you what it is, but it's reality. There are people every single day scared to death about what they're going to do next. They're just running out of money. They have run out of money. And we're going to be seeing and hearing more and more about it every day because it's coming fast. It's not a few people. It's not low-income people. It's people who made good livings their whole lives, who did what they thought they were supposed to do in planning for retirement. But the effects of inflation and everything that's happened the last 10 years has really caught up with them. This is also an issue for millennials. And I know that sounds ridiculous because I still think of millennials as kids, but they're in their 40s now. There are a large number of millennials who have chosen to remain completely single and not have kids, and that's great for them. However, when you start thinking about retirement and you don't have family support and you know you're going to outlive your parents probably, you may outlive your siblings, and you may be all by yourself. What then? I actually knew a woman when I was living in the mountains that was the case with her. She had no family. She had no children. She hadn't had children. And she was in her early 80s. But when she was in her 80s and had cancer, she had to rely on friends to help her, to take her back and forth to treatments, to support her, and then deal with her estate. There was no one. There was no one. So the idea that, that's not going to happen, I'm not going to think about that, yeah, that's unrealistic. That is absolutely unrealistic. It is the hot topic of conversation right now in those age groups. And if you're in those age group, you know it. I'm not telling you anything you absolutely don't know. So you have to sit and think, okay, what do you do about it? The only thing you can do is anticipate it coming and figure out, okay, what are your options going to be? What are you going to do about it? One of the things I've talked about a lot on this channel is having some sort of cash flow retirement. That is where this idea comes into play. Because if you have to go out there and work hourly for money in your 80s, that's going to be very, very difficult. If you have any option to plan ahead or even use part of your money that's invested right now to get something that produces cash flow, a commercial property, a rental property, to put maybe some classes you can teach up online. Yes, you have to teach yourself. Yes, it's hard. But you know what's harder? Starving to death because you can't support yourself. That is a real thing. It is an absolute real thing. So I think it bears us all kind of taking a step back because sometimes we just go through each day, we go through life, and we have all these worries, but we're not really doing something to address them. We're not really taking steps that are going to give us options down the road. Now's the time to do it. Not a year from now, not 5 years from now, not after you've been in retirement 10 years. No, right now. The more you can do to help yourself sooner, the better you will be later. You can just imagine yourself in 5 to 10 years. How are you going to feel knowing, I watched Dee's video And she told us this was coming. She told us it was going to happen. And I did nothing. Nothing. How are you going to feel if you did nothing to help yourself when you really could have? So I just kind of wanted to put this message out there. Please be thinking about all the different ways you can help yourself, because hard times are coming. They're already here for a lot of people. And that's another thing. If you know, especially some widows or widowers, this affects men too. I'm not just talking about it affecting women. It affects men too who are in their 70s and 80s. And you know they may be struggling. They may be struggling with food. They may be struggling to get places. They may need a little bit of help here, a little help there. Please step in and help them. Please do. They worry about so many things. So I apologize for this being a little bit of a downer, but you know what? Ever so often, we just have to spin the truth here, and we just have to let people know you're not going to get away from this. It's not going to be easier for you. Anything can happen. And while you may be sitting well right now and think you're completely planned for, anything can happen. And you better be prepared when it does. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.